I believe I'm audible. So I welcome you all on this sixth day of Monstag Bootcamp organized by Geeks4Geeks LPU in collaboration with Skill Valley. And today we are having a sixth day of Monstag Bootcamp, and I welcome Azhar sir, who is a full stack developer himself and a freelancer and podcaster. Uh, a very warm welcome, sir. Uh, Now, could you please start this session?
Thank you so much. Okay, let's begin. But it seems like everyone is celebrating weekend. We should have a skipped weekend.
Yeah, it seems. Right now we have 66 participants. So should we wait till we have 100 students at least? Or
No, I think that would be unfair for the people who
yeah,
already came earlier. So it's fine, we can begin. So if they are
okay,
late,
sir.
they are missing out. It's not our fault.
Yeah, all right.
Okay, perfect. So before starting, you guys have any doubt or anything? I have a doubt, Sandeep. Yes, please. Anyone have any doubt? Please comment out on the chat box. We can discuss. Sai clear. Perfect. Anvesha, good evening. Good evening. Unmute. Oh, okay. I don't know who is anchor today. Can you please unmute Sandeep Vaidya? Vaidya. Okay, Sandeep Vaidya. Let me check first who is
Okay,
anchor.
sir, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Nisha Srivastava, and
Hi,
I'm
Nisha.
hello, sir. Okay, Sandeep. Wait a
Yes, I'm
second.
unmuted now, I guess. Yeah, I'm unmuted.
Okay, fine.
So, yeah, sir, I was actually going through your code and I did everything like you showed me. But, sir, got stuck in the postman. I am sending the JSON file, but I don't know why it is not receiving at the end. And it is showing some kind of like HTML error is there, like cannot post API. I don't know what is happening, but the database is created in the MongoDB compass. So, can you please assist me? What is happening here? I don't understand.
Okay, so first of all, in code, we cannot resolve any code without seeing the code itself and
Yeah,
the
you
error
can
that
share
is.
my screen, sir, if I like.
Okay,
Yeah,
so yes,
go
of
ahead.
course, but not now, not now, because as we have already discussed on the other classes, if you have any error, if you're getting any error or there is any issue, please share the screenshots on the Telegram group, and I'm always active there to resolve all those queries.
Actually, sir, the thing is that I have no problem in the VS Code. I'm getting no problems. Actually, I'm getting the problem on the Postman app itself. So it is telling me title error, and it's a HTML, like the format is of HTML, and I don't know what is happening. So
Okay, so what happened is in Postman, if you're sending the body, have you selected raw JSON?
yes, sir, raw I have selected, and it's a body of JSON, raw JSON
Okay,
file.
then whatever error you are getting, please share this on a Telegram and we will discuss this there.
Okay, sir. Okay, okay.
Right. And
Yeah.
I'm there, chill. I'm there and we can discuss more on this. And if there are like anything at the end of the day, we will resolve it together.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Good evening. Anyone else? Any doubt or anything? Any errors that you're getting or something? Or till now, whatever you have learned, you want to go more deeper in theory?
Yes, another thing is that can you just give me a theory like insight of the middleware? I am not so sure or clear about it. I've read it like in many articles, but I have some books also, but I am not so sure and clear that what it is doing actually, the what is it is its work is.
Okay, you have the theoretical knowledge, but why we are
Yes, sir.
using.
I know this part that to process any request from like start to the committed part, the middle portion which is doing everything is the middleware. So
Not exactly, but somehow right. Okay, let me help you with that. Okay, so middleware, right? I have same error. Okay, Abhishek Sharma, of course. So we can discuss the same thing on Telegram. Please share this screenshot and we can discuss more on this. So I guess there are not much queries except middlewares. So yesterday only we had discussed middleware. So middleware is something like, as I have already gave the example yesterday. So something like if you are going to watch any movie, then what we need, like on the very first thing is, like, suppose if you're going to your home, there are no middlewares. You and your home, you want to go to your home, you just go to your home, right? So there are no middlewares. So that is the process we use generally. Like, suppose in login, if someone wants to log in and they have their credentials like password and email or maybe phone number, so they are sending this credential directly to the login page, right? Because login page, we need whatever are coming, right? We just need a sort of filtration that the user is sending phone number, and that is a valid phone number, and the password at least, right? These two are the validation. So after that validation, we are sending this to our API, right? But now there should be someone in middle who check this. Like, suppose the user is what the user is sending. Like, suppose if you're going to cinema hall and you want to watch that movie, so you should bring your ticket for sure, right? You should get a ticket first, and then you should bring your ticket, valid one. Then there is a gatekeeper, there is a ticket man who is actually checking your ticket, literally, like, scan through a scan or something or whatsoever. Like, is that like, firstly, you have that ticket or not? That is the first validation. Secondly, like, is that ticket valid ticket or not? So this is the same way we use this functionalities. Like, that gatekeeper is basically the middleware we are using in node. So how we are using it, like, suppose firstly the user is sending their credentials, so we are we are saying we are keeping a middleware just to check that the user are sending the valid phone number or email ID or not, and the password is there or not. So these two things should be required. If they have this, then go forward and check, and go forward and fetch to the like, go forward to the next method. And what next method are they are literally doing? That they are literally checking the password are matched or not, that the email ID or the phone number, the user exists or not, right? But again, what middleware is basically the this in the middle, like, in the middle, whatever functionalities, whatever conditions we can just keep there. But it is basically the process, like, it is basically the pipeline, like, from here to here to here to here. So that pipeline we keep adding on, and all the pipelines which are in the middle from the user to the end, like the actual method. So all of these pipeline we call middleware. So again, we are going to create a couple of middleware even today, so we can also demonstrate a bit more, and I will be elaborating again.
Okay, sir,
Cool.
got it, got it.
Perfect. Okay, let me share my screen and let's jump to the code. So we are almost 100. Perfect. Okay, so Zomato clone. We had only this one collection where we had only this one user. Now, so as I told, we need a sort of a validation, right? Like, suppose right now what we are doing, from the postman we are sending a certain data, right? Let me just open the chat box. Perfect. Okay, so what's happening, like, suppose if you're sending something from postman, like, suppose in postman we are sending this data, right? We are sending this data, and this data is going to be saved directly. Sorry, this data is going directly to the user module, as in user, and this controller. So whenever I'm hitting with this particular body to this login page, and this is going to this login controller, and in the login controller we have all the functionalities, right? So why shall we just redirect to the login method directly? We should validate these first, that, like, the user are sending the proper credentials or not, right? Sorry, this is the login page. So the user is sending the proper credentials or not, right? So just for validating this, we need to add a middleware. Let's just hard code this first, then we can understand a bit more in this. Like, suppose request response. We already went through this multiple times, but again, there would be a time where I won't repeat this again and again. Request response. And also in the middleware we get one more thing, which is next. Sorry, not right here. Next, right? Now suppose we'll be checking, like, maybe request dot body dot maybe the phone is there or not, phone is there or not, and uh request dot body dot password is there or not. So if this two is not there, then simply return response of status 403 not authorized, and no, 401, which is the client error, like the bad request. We call 401 for bad request. So the user is basically requesting with, like wrong credentials or something is missing and so on. And let us send it with like phone and password are required, right? So this is what we do. So if there is no phone or no password, then we are sending this. Abhishek, please don't draw anything on my screen. Okay, so in this code, what we are actually doing again. Yes, thank you, appreciate it. Okay, so request. So here what we are checking, we added these middleware, right? So this is suppose again. Vadya, this is the route where we are actually going, and this is the actual method we want to reach, right? Now suppose here are we, and here is the cinema hall, and here is the gatekeeper who is checking the ticket, like ticket as in the validating, like suppose do you have this ticket or not. Here we are not checking that the phone number is valid or not and so on. We are just checking that do you have that ticket or not, right? So in these, if they do not have this tickets, like the phone and the password, then we are simply sending phone and passwords are required, like suppose you are not allowed to the theater, and if not, then go to the next. And whenever we are calling this next in any condition, so these next basically end these particular middleware and pass this request and response to the next method. Now in next method, in the login, we are again having this request and response, and we are calculating all those methods and everything. So let's just taste this once. Like suppose firstly, let's log it. npm no npm start. Okay, so our server is successfully running. Now let's go to the postman and remove phone number. So we are not sending phone number now. Yes, now we are not sending the phone number. User does not exist. User does not exist. Please sign up. Okay, so this is not actually working. And if there is no user, and this, oh, okay, this should not be or, this should be or, not and. Okay, if this is not if this does not exist or this does not exist, then return this. Yeah, okay, cool. Now phone and password are required, right? So this is the kind of a method, this is the kind of a validation we put. But again, for all the methods, like wherever we would need this request.body, we cannot just write all of these right this, right? So, and also this phone number is right or not, and this phone number has at least 13, at least minimum 10 and maximum 13 digits or not. The password should be 6 or not. So all this writing, all this validation in this particular middleware becomes a bit more hectic, right? So now we have something else to introduce here. What we do is we use this joy. If we get the right one, yes. Okay, so this is Joy, the most powerful schema description language and data validator for JavaScript. So we can use it even anywhere, somewhere else. There are certain thanks. Next to work serially. Yes, next works serially. Like suppose the first method, the first middleware will be used, and if something goes wrong, and if you in any condition, if you send the response, then that next should not work, and the next or that request would not be passed to the next method. And you can use multiple middlewares for multiple process and everything, right? Is the next implies that the next validation should be checked. I'm actually not getting, so is the next implies that the next validation should be checked. No, I'm not actually getting this. See, what I'm getting is like, suppose if the next is not there, right? So if that is what you mean, so it seems like if you do not pass this next, or if you're, that means that you are not even sending any response, right? So obviously it will just loop to that particular middleware and it won't even send any response. Like it will stuck to that particular middleware because you are not sending any response and you are not even passing that request to the next method. So it will stuck in that moment. The next middleware function is executed. Yes. Okay, so for validation, we are going to use this. This is very amazing one. I use this from the very beginning until now. Even I'm using this for any professional software. So let's just introduce a bit more. So how does it get used? I want to hide it. Okay. Perfect. Now, so how do we use Joy? Again, we are going to install Joy and then we are going to import it. And how does it work? So if you remember in the Mongoose schema, we defined something like if this should be string, this should be number, this should be number, this should be required, this should be minimum, maximum, and so on, right? So the same way we are going to use here, like the username or the name or the password, whatever we like the data type what we want. Like suppose in the database we want a string, so we can pass, we can expect to be string. Like the user should send that particular data in string, and if you're expecting number, then the from user only should, not actually user but from the client side, like the front end side. So from front end it should be sent as a number. So all these the same type of schema we can just use in this way, and this is very easy to use. So let's just use it and understand what we are actually going to do. And then again, so suppose, okay, let's just code and then you will understand a bit more. The documentation is for depth understanding, and if you are going to learn something from new to advanced, and if you are coding while, but here I am there to help you out in this, and let's just code along. So in users, let's add another file which we can call something like a validator, maybe validator. Yes, perfect. Now here, so the firstly we need to install Joy, npm I Joy. Okay, now let's define that particular schema. Install. Okay. Um. Joy. Notice it's capital. J is capital. Required. Again, it is not necessary, but is the way we follow the documentation. Now, suppose login, maybe yes. So login. Okay. So in the login, what we are actually expecting. So login. How the login object should be. Firstly, in login, we are expecting an object, right? And then within that object, what data we are expecting? Phone, which should be joy.string. So this is how we just defined, and we again call this method. This is not particular string, but a method. And if it should be required, then we can just pass required. And then we also need password the same way, joy.string, and this also should be required. That's all. So now we have this schema, right? Now, the next thing is we need to validate this, right? Now we need to check that these particular like the whatever is coming in the request.body should be like this, right? So we can hold it something. And how we can validate this? So the same schema, like this is schema like this one, this login has validate method like this, validate. We can also use as an async one because we are going to use with async await. So we can also use like this. So if something goes wrong, so this will say something like error username is required and so on. So let's just use this and then we can but we are not but we need this validate async is going to be used all the way long. So we can use this in the middleware only. So in middleware, let's create a folder. We can call it something like validator.js, and there we can create a file index, and here we can create that middleware itself. So validator is going to request response and next. Right. Okay, perfect. Now, firstly, okay, so this validator, but we in this validator we are also sending something like this. Okay, perfect. Response. Firstly, we'll import this. Yeah, coming. Okay, 1 minute. Give me just 1 minute. Okay, it's visible. Can't see in chat anyway. Schema, perfect. Okay, so now here we need to validate this particular data, right? So the way we are going to call it is maybe in the router. So here just import this from the mid, it's coming from middleware only. So let's just do like this, and this we are calling validator something, maybe not like this, but we spelled it in a wrong way. This should be renamed as validator. Perfect. Now it's there, but it should not even be .js, man. Perfect. So this validator is coming now in the, okay, so now in the middleware, how the way we are going to call is this, right? But this validator would be very specific to this login and sign up and so on. So what we are going to do is we are going to call the schema that we had just defined, which is going to be require, and it is going to come the same way, and we are calling it validator. Let's call it maybe we can call it schema, And then here we are going to pass something like schema dot login. Okay, perfect. So now in this validator, we are, what's wrong? Again, we are getting the error. We need to resolve it in some ways. Something like, okay, Zomato library route. No, this is not the way we are going to resolve it. We are going to get some chats, and they are like, it will validate if we pass a string in phone. It means me. No, I'm not getting it. Will validate if we pass a string in phone. No, it is not going to validate, because what we are expecting is the number, right? But here, what we are, the way we have defined it is like, it will take string, but in the database we are expecting number, so it's not going to work in that way. But again, the way MongoDB work is a bit weird. Like, suppose if we are expecting number, but in a string, if we are passing all the numbers, then it will accept as number only. So that's how it works. And this and so on. Okay, the rest we can take again. The chats. Okay. Again, there's the JS magic. Okay, require the pass string, or it is required to pass a string. No, it's fine. It will validate if you pass a string and phone number. Enjoy module used for easy validation. Yes, have a route phone choice string is required. Why you use phone? Okay, I have used this string because we are going to get error, of course, and we need to check what kind of error we are getting, and then again we'll be resolving that for sure. Okay. We were getting an error, by the way. I just needed a refreshment. Now we are getting this error because we are calling this validator here, and in the validator, in the validator we are not working anything. So here is the thing. So in the middleware, we are like, suppose we are already getting this, right? Like the request, response, and next. But here the scenario is something different. We are calling a function, a method, right? And we are passing certain parameters there. So here the way we are going to define is like this, a callback, where maybe you can call it schema or something. And then in this schema, or no, we should accept this as a parameter. But again, this is not holding us in parameter. Not sure why. So this validator is expecting a certain schema, I guess. Why is it so weird? Okay. Okay. Do not accept this. Then also it's working, not working. So here is something we need to fix together. Okay, so this validator has this the schema.login, and what if we call this validator without any parameter? Oh, then it's working. So if we are passing something in the parameter, then it is not working. Okay, I'm not sure why is it not working, because we are supposed to pass this in the validator, and the validator we are already expecting this. Okay, there's somebody chatting, and here is validator.login. Validator is object. Validator is not object. Validator is basically the method that we are using it here. But this should not work in the same way. And so Why is it not? This is okay. No, this we cannot use anyway. We need to find something else. Why are we not using validator in sign up too? Again, we are going to use in sign up also, but for now we are just trying to understand how we can implement the validation. Of course, we are going to use it there. Validator, we are expected to export login. No, not that is not the way we should be resolving this anyway. So here we are calling this validator and we are passing this parameter, and this parameter also looks fine. This is an object, and here we are calling this. This is the way we use anyway. Schema, and this is going to be the parameter method, and that particular method is a callback. Oh, now it's working. I don't know why is it so weird. Okay, so now we are getting this schema, and we also have request response and next like the entire callback. So let's just return something and let's work with it. Now this schema has, as we call it, let's follow the documentation. So here this says this schema would have the validate async, and this needs to be passed whatever is coming in the body, right? So the body is in the request, and we also have this schema. So in the schema dot validate async, and here we need to pass request dot body, right? And this is again wait and wait. No, not wait. Perfect. And now we need to wrap this in try and catch. If something goes wrong, simply catch the error. If something goes wrong, for now we are just sending a response dot send not working, and we are going to log the error because in Joy they are going to send structured error, and we need to destructure this to get a particular message. I guess this works. Catch error, else we are going to call next. Like suppose if there is no error, we are going to call next. If okay, so here what we are doing, we are validating this. Now we have this schema, and this schema is basically this schema where we are defining this should be the object, and we are requiring phone number required, password should be string and required, and so on, right? And but here like suppose if this goes well, it won't throw any error, but if this does not, it will throw an error. So here this one is supposed to throw an error because in phone we are sending number. So let's check, not working, and the error looks something like this, right? Now the way we are going to structure this is, now this error has details. So let's log the details, and this details is an array, right? So suppose, and this array would have multiple, actually, like suppose if we are sending, maybe if you are not sending password, okay, so this will throw multiple errors. Let's just see, not working, and here phone must be required, and so on. So this detail is now we have this detail, and with this detail we are going to share the first message. So how we can do that is the first item in the array, and that is an object, and what we need is just the message, right? So dot message. So this we need to log. So for now, let's just send it and see how it works. phone must be string. So this is how we are going to work, right? Like suppose if the phone is not there, then phone is required. So this is the way we are going to validate. And why this is the easiest one, because what we need is just to define the schema, what are required, what are not, and that's it. And just in the middleware, just call this method and pass whatever schema you are just looking for. You don't need to explicitly write what like every single method, like this should be there, they should be there, and so on, right? This is the simple way of validating the request. And again, why are we using this validation? Now see, now there is a security concern here that we need to understand, all of us need to understand, which is like every time we are going to fetch this, of course this is going to work with the database, right? Suppose if someone is sending this password and phone and password, then we are going to send this, we are going to check this directly with the database and so on, right? So we are directly working with the database. There is no certain validation here. Now suppose someone might send maybe malicious in the body only, request.body, they might send some malicious code or something, and we are directly sending them. Like suppose they might send something in phone, like suppose in phone we are expecting a string, and in string they might send something like malicious code, and we are directly sending that to our database, and that could be very dangerous for us, right? So we do not do that. We yeah, we keep this validation, we keep this middleware just to filter those data, that these are the required things, and we are not going to accept much more than this, and if we are requiring this, so these are needed, that's it, not more than that, not more than that. So that's how we are going to work with it. So validation of course is very much required. And again, if even if you are going to create something, some data, like suppose maybe you are going to create a user with some phone number, username, and so on. So even there, like suppose you have already mentioned in the database schema, like in the mongoose schema, that we are going to store name as in string, phone as in number, and so on, right? But here in this time we are going to validate these, because we don't want to send the database error and so on, because that is again more complex and so on. But here we are also going to get this customized uh, error message we can send, right? So let's just send it in a proper way and then move forward. And if you have any question regarding this, please write down the comment and we can just take it. Bad request, send an object, we are going to be success false, and message is going to be error dot delete the first item and message, right? Now suppose we are, when we are going to send it, when the error has details and that details has message, or then right now suppose if we get something else, something else like as in any other error, then we are not even going to get this message, right? So we need to send something else. So here what we can do is, if error, these are just for cross check, so if error is there, so error should be there, and error must have this details and the first item, of course, so this should be there, and that first item should have these message. So ultimately if this message is there, then we are going to send it. So in JavaScript we don't even need to write this, we can just write this, and we can pass this as an optional parameter just right here. Like suppose if the error, if there is any error, then move forward and check the details has first item or not. If it has, then move forward and check there is a message or not. So these are just again shortcuts to use. Then we are going to return this, and if this doesn't work, then we are going to return response dot send 409 conflict. No, that should be status, and 401 conflict success false, message is going to be Something went wrong. Perfect. Now let's taste again. Okay. Now success false and phone must be a string. Perfect. Now let's just go and make it right. This should be number. Perfect. Now if we just try to log in, must be string. Oh, we changed this to number, not there. Now if we just try to fetch this, and this particular this perfectly validate and goes on to generate the token and so on. Perfect. Now I hope you know you got the validation part. And again, this validation is highly important, and you are not going to work with only string, object, arrays, and numbers every time. You are going to work with multiple ones. So like max, lower, and there are a lot of things you are going to face. So just go towards the validation, go towards the documentation. You can just type joy.dev and just read out the documentation a bit. You don't need to memorize all of these things. You just need to be a familiar. Like suppose if tomorrow, like suppose if you are going to learn and see something like defaults, right? You just saw like, okay, so there is like suppose while going through this, you saw something defaults. Now suppose tomorrow if you come up certain situations, like suppose if someone is not sending from a front end, then you need to send something by default, you need to save something by default, and you need to pass it to the next module. Like suppose the next method after that pass this particular validation middleware, right? Then you need to use this. So this will be in your mind. So there is something called defaults. You might don't know what it actually works and everything, but because you forgot what it actually says. But you will come back to this documentation and you will see that, okay, there is something that could be fixed, there is something that might be useful. So there are a lot of things. Just go a bit and go through this, like what are those, that's it, and you will get a better understanding to use it in a better way. Why are we not using values? We are going to use worked. Okay, perfect. Now validation, I guess we are done with it. We are going to add this validation on the other modules too. So let's use this. Now exports dot sign, oh man, sign up, which is going to be joy dot object. And this again for this, I'm just going to use for this one, and maybe I will skip the other parts because you are going to use it. As usual, we do not have much time to go along or every single code multiple times. Okay, so we are expect for login, they need their name, which is going to be joy.string, and that also should be required. And we will accept name, password, and what. So here yesterday we were taking name, phone, email, password. Rule, of course, not needed. We will keep it by default, and then we are going to update this, but we might need, but this rule should not be required. And email. Perfect. So we are also having email. We are also having password. We are also having phone, and now the phone is going to be the number. The email is going to be email. I don't know there is or not, but it's fine. Then the role, and role is going to be, we had defined it should be a string, right? But now we are going to change this role to number, and we are going to explain in a bit that why number, and this should not be required. Perfect. And all these data should be required, and maybe we can put email as an optional, but the phone should be required because we are going to implement this. Maybe we are going to implement the login page with phone number only, so email might not be needed. Perfect. Now let's just go through this and see. Of course, this is not going to work, but let's just get some error to see if that is working perfectly fine. Cannot get, of course you cannot get. Post. Cannot post. Well, because unit sign up. Yes, user already exists. Oh, this is not using. Of course, they should not use because we are not using it here. So let's just copy this and paste it here. And instead of login, we're using sign up validation. That's it. Now see, now we are adding this entire validation for these sign up, but it's so simple. We are just passing this. We have just created this schema, what we need, which we can also refer to the user or the required. Like suppose here we are signing in up. What are the required fields and so on. We are just defining it and we are passing it to the validator method, and then it's working right away. See, name is required. So perfect. Okay, again, the validation is done. Now let's just move forward and work, and let's go a bit more deeper. Till now, you guys have any queries or something? We can take it. It feels like you are so mature. You are already getting every single thing we are discussing here. So increase your editor font. Yes, of course. I'm so sorry. I forgot this. Viva Pal model user and schema. Okay. So as I told, this role we were having string, right? Now let's just go a bit more advanced into this schema thing because we are going to work with other stuff too. Now, this role, right? And as we already had discussed, what are the roles should be? Firstly, Zomato, secondly, restaurant, and thirdly, the user itself. Here we go. This three type of user, right? So firstly, the Zomato, like the admin, second, the restaurant, and the user, right? So then let's just define this in constant first. Let's add a file in user model. We can define constant.js, and here we can define what kind of role there would be. So again, if you are going to define multiple constraints in the schema, here what we do. And again, there are one more way to do the same thing, not the same thing, but something else. Like suppose here we are defining this address right here, right? But this is not the way we do it. Like suppose if there is something like sub schema, or maybe a schema holds multiple, or an object that has multiple properties, we again segregate even that properties, because we add something like util or something, you again segregate this, because if you segregate this, no, then see this part, and no, not this part, this part, then it becomes so readable. And now it's big, it's not much readable and a bit noisy. So just to make your code a bit more readable, we add multiple files and separate all those details, because this is not, in this case we are going to handle only one object, but on other projects you might be handling multiple one. So you need this. So the role, right? So the firstly, there would be two things for role enum and exports dot role. So this role would be an object where we'll be defining admin, which is going to be 2, and then restaurant, which is going to be 1, and maybe the user, which is going to be 0. Now I am guessing that you already got my point. This dot role dot admin. Now this dot role dot, I'm going to explain every single line, don't worry. This dot role dot the user. Okay, now, so we are not going to hold the role as in a string. Like we cannot just explicitly mention as in this is the user, this is the admin, and so on, right? Because if someone might steal our data, like maybe the token, like as we already have seen yesterday, someone can just copy that token from the local storage only, where we'll be storing on front end side. then and they can just paste that to the JWT website and they can see what are the payloads and everything, right? So in their payload only they will get what kind of a role this particular user has. So they should not see, like, suppose this particular user is admin, that this particular user is the restaurant user, and user itself, right? So that's why we make it a bit more objectify, because this is more optimized one. But in our code base we explain like this is the admin, this is the restaurant and user, and the way we are using it, the regular user should be 0, and a bit more higher authority, which is restaurant, should be 1, a bit more higher authority, which is admin, should be 2, and so on. If we are going to add much more users, we can just manipulate even here. And why are we holding this in the enum as an array? Again, we are going to discuss this, because here the type, they should be string, right? So this first thing it's going to take is the default one. Suppose if the person is not sending anything on role, what this should has, so role dot user should be the default one. Now let's just import it from somewhere. From require the same file, we call it constant, but this require same code, yes, constant, of course. But am I missing something? What am I missing? Okay, you guys are commenting out. I play instead of curly brackets. Oh man, this is so ugly. I can't even see full. Okay. What are we getting? Role, of course, and the role enum, right? So here we have this role now, where we are getting this user now. So we have this role, right? So now by default, this role should be user. Like suppose if you're not sending anything from front end on somewhere, this should be user itself. And how many type of roles should be? So as we have discussed, enum is the new data type of JavaScript. You can learn more on this, and most of you should know because you're already familiar with JavaScript. So the enum, in enum we are defining this. So how enum works is basically we define an array of enum, like this one as we had already discussed. So we define an array, and in this array, so suppose we are expecting a string, right? But this should be in enum. So in enum, in the sense, uh, the value should be anyone in that array. That could not be outside of this array. So this should be 0 or 1 or 2, not anything else than this. So we are also going to limit this. If someone is trying to just add any user with the with something like 3 or 5 or 6, then they are not going to able to, they should not be able to add it, because we are defining the enum here, right? Perfect. Now we can move forward, and the enum is there and the user is there. So now in the role, we can just remove it, and let's go to our database again and even use this user, and let's create a new one. Successfully registered, please log in. Let's refresh the code. Perfect. Now the role has 0. Oh, again 0. No, this should not be 0. So as I just told, like what this does is basically, if you are sending number and you are keeping the value type as a string, this is going to take as string itself. So that's why this happened. The role became a string. So let's delete this and do it again. And again, this is very precious. Do not do this as I'm doing. This is just for tutorial purposes. You are going not at all going to delete anything directly from database or something on production, of course. Be more cautious on this. If you delete something, that's going to mess up a lot of things anyway. Refresh. Okay, perfectly. Now this is the regular user and everything looks perfect. Perfect. Now let's move forward and create a bit more. Now, let's move forward and create to our different modules like orders, categories, and so on, right? Firstly, let's move forward and create our restaurant. Now let's understand the flow, how we will be creating the restaurant. Like suppose there would be two sign up option. The first one would be the first one would be for the regular user, and the second one would be like suppose register your restaurant or something. So the other one would be registering their restaurant, right? So in restaurant, if we see here in restaurant, we have something like name, location, and image, right? And there also should be something like phone. Anyways, we can do it. So name, location, and image. So the one who is trying to register their restaurant, we can put something like as in name. There we can acquire something like their name, location, and phone at least, right? So let's just add this. Firstly, let's create our schema. So that would be much more easier, like the body schema. So that would be much more easier for us to manipulate later on. This is the model. We are not going to work anything on the model. We are going to work with the controller part. And it seems like we do not have any. So let's just create one. Restaurant. New file. Controller.js. And validator.js. Okay, so I'm going to create this restaurant and user link, and tomorrow you will be working with the category and item for sure. I might show one of them, but you are going to work with the another one and how you can link those. Okay, so and one more, I guess. Index. And again, I don't want to share this, but it seems like there are not many people who are actually coding with me and who are trying to create this all these assignments and coding by themselves. So I just want to tell them who are not literally coding, but just getting the fundamentals and everything on theory. So it's good. Like suppose if you're getting the theory, it's really good. But you know what? At the end of this boot camp, or maybe at the end of the day, you are not going to remember every single thing. And if you do not even practice by yourself, everything is going to be trashed. Trust me, I have tried this when I was a beginner. Everything went to trash, and all those time and everything literally went to trash. And I could not even help because I was not able to write code, like not able to, I would say, like what I used to do at the beginning. I did not have the laptop. In starting, I used to learn coding where I started, that I can share right now. So it was like I don't remember the year, but then I used to work as in a marketing company somewhere. And then there, when I used to return from the job, or when I used to be there, then I used to learn coding from mobile itself. So there used to be certain applications, like nowadays, all those applications are paid, like we call it Solo Learn. That is an Android application, again, Solo Learn. So that I have learned HTML and CSS from that application only, like via mobile, because I did not have laptop at that time. So I got laptop after 2 years, when since I started coding. And then when I got the laptop, then initially I started coding in JavaScript and so on, because these languages literally requires the environment to be set up and everything, because phone was not the optimized one. So that's why. But the first website I remember, the first, not website I would say, but the first web in HTML and CSS, I coded on mobile only. So that's where I belong to. And now I literally know ki, like, if you just understand the theory and you do not code, like when the moment I did not have started coding JavaScript on laptop, I thought I know like much of the JavaScript fundamentals and everything I used to know. But when I started coding on JavaScript, I was literally stuck, because at that moment I had the theory knowledge, but I did not know how to code in JavaScript, like how to literally start, what to write first. Like suppose if you want to achieve something, what to achieve something, what how you should plan, like what are the possibilities in JavaScript, and that those things you can get only by coding by yourself. And that you really need to understand. Like I don't know what you're looking forward for your career and everything, but I'm guessing as you are here with me in this MERN Stack bootcamp, I'm guessing you are going to get something in coding industry, like the IT industry. Then you need it, you need to practice a lot, because coding is not something like you can remember and then you can just write it. Trust me, you can remember and you can just memorize every single line and everything, every fundamentals, everything you can just get in theory. But trust me, when you will sit to make any project, you are going to get stuck and you have to google 1,000 times just to make a 10 lines of code. And that should not happen with anyone. You should not waste your time at that time. So just start coding and just try to learn the fundamentals while coding only. I know it's a very simple line. Suppose here we are writing, maybe here we are writing this few lines of code, but trust me, this few lines of code has much more knowledge. And these, if you write this few lines of code by yourself, in future you are not going to google maybe 50 times. You might be googling maybe 2 to 3 times, because you know what these particular stuff is actually doing. And maybe tomorrow if you will be joining any job, or you will be coming up with any advanced project with any freelancing clients or something, then if you might be working with something at advanced level, then you have to google again and again. But why should you google? Because you are already getting certain knowledge from here and maybe in other resources. But you should apply these and literally practice on coding. So please do practice on coding. That is highly needed. That is highly needed. Even not from bootcamp, but even from if you're learning from somewhere else, please code. That is highly needed. Practice is highly needed. Okay, so let's just start the restaurant one, and let's create a validator first. Like suppose if someone is trying to log in their restaurant, then how that particular thing look like. So firstly, let's import our joy. Okay, exports. What should we do here? Maybe sign up restaurant maybe. So this should be an object as enjoy dot object, and in this object, what shall we take? The very first one is restaurant name, right? So in restaurant name, it should be joy dot string, and this should be required for sure. Perfect. Secondly, we need location. Thirdly, we need, what is this preferring here? Require me existing type schema. String type schema. No, it does exist. Okay. Now this location is there. Now, maybe the username, right? So username, and then phone, and password. Which is going to be again the same thing. I should have copy pasted, but it's fine. Required. Or it says, of course, required is not there, required is there. Perfect. Okay, so while signing up our restaurant, we need a restaurant name, restaurant location, the username, like who is trying to register that user, or maybe we can call it owner name, phone, and the password. That's all we are having, right? Now let's understand what do we need to do. See, here's a bit of complexity here. You need to add two data into two different collection. Why? Because suppose we are here, we are going to add a restaurant, right? And you are also going to add the user who has that restaurant. So how do we do that? So in controller, firstly, let's see if do we have, no, we do not even have the service here. We call it router on the other places. Yeah, so this is not index. We call it router. And in restaurant, we should be getting something like this. So let's just paste it here because we are going to use multiple data, and then this user as in category, and we're getting this from the schema. And of course, this should has category, category. Module dot exports this. Yes, we are exporting this. So here we should has, not here, but here. Okay, let's see. This might not need it. Okay, so now we are adding this user, we are adding this category and so on. So in schema, owner, which is string and so on. Okay, perfect. Controller, the validator is there. The router we will be adding. The schema is there. Just add this just for the fundamental purposes. Okay. So here, sports dot sign up restaurant, and here what we are going to do is, of course, the regular callback with request response. However, here we are going to keep it because we need this reference. Okay, we are going to need this comment, so we are adding this here. Okay, now let's understand how we are going to add. Firstly, we need this to be linked, right? Like suppose there would be with these particular data, if someone is trying to sign up their restaurant, so we are going to add two different document in two different collections. Firstly, we need to add a document in the restaurant with the restaurant data, and secondly, we need to add the user data to the user, right? Perfect. Now let's add this a bit more and how we are going to do this. Okay, that is a bit should that be there first? Okay, so before moving forward and add those different schema, of course, we can add one document to one collection. Of course, adding two different collection, adding to two different collection is not that difficult, right? But here is a twist. These two particular documents should be linked. Like suppose the user should be linked to that corresponding restaurant, and that restaurant should be linked to that corresponding user. Like suppose if we see the user schema and the restaurant schema, so there was something owner, and here there is something called restaurant. Like suppose if the user is admin, yes, that is the user is the restaurant user, then uh, this user should have this string like the restaurant ID, right? And as I told, how we are connecting with these two different user is like this, like we are going to link with object ID. Now again, so there are two ways of adding these two details. Like suppose firstly in the restaurant data, like in the user data, under restaurant property, we can add all those restaurant user, like all these this is not even this is not even huge data, so we can add these data to the user restaurant property here. But uh, you know there is a conflict. Like suppose tomorrow if this restaurant might be changed, like suppose if they decide to change this restaurant name or maybe the restaurant image or something, then here these data would not be changed, right? So the another way of linking the between these two data type is using reference, and the way we are going to use it is something like, suppose the restaurant, right? And the type is not going to be this, the type is going to be mongoose dot schema dot type dot object ID. So this literally defines the particular object ID which we have here. These ID, as you can see here, this we Mongo call it object ID. So we are literally defining this won't be this the type would be the object ID, and this object ID looks like string, but trust me, it is not a string. If you pass a string to this is not going to work. Like suppose even if I just show you here, if I just write a query by searching this ID simply, the data is not there. Of course, it should not be, right? So if the way we do it is simply pass this into the object ID, and here we go. So this is not a string. Every time we are going to work with ID, we have to convert this particular string to the object ID, and then we are going to work with it. So here also we are defining this type as an object ID. So this, they do not have anything something like a string or number and so on. This is the way. This is a bit weird, but again, this is the way they define it. I don't know. Yes, I have defined a schema earlier, so I can define even like this. Yes, this is the first way, like adding, like defining the type of the ID first. And the second way is adding reference. And this reference is basically the same name that we have defined here, the restaurant, like basically the collection name. So this reference defines this object ID is coming from which collection. So this reference, we are adding these collection, the restaurant collection. This object ID is coming from the restaurant collection, and the same way we are going to work here. So here we are going to define as in type should be mongoose dot schema dot types dot object ID, and the reference should be user, the way we have defined here, the user, right? Perfect. Again, so this is the way we are just defining it here. Like suppose here the type would be the object ID, and this object ID should come from the restaurant. And the way we are going to use this, again, we are going to code a bit more on this, and then we are going to understand. But just try to understand, this is the way we are going to link between two different collection document, the restaurant document and the user document. And you will be using the same way to add categories and items. So like suppose in categories, if you see there are restaurants, so in restaurant ID, the way you are going to add is the same. If you go to the, and again, there are also items. In items, there is strings, but this is not going to be the string. This is going to be the type of object ID, and the reference are going to be the item. Again, in the item, this is going to be like the restaurant, again, the restaurant ID, and the category is going to be the category reference ID. So I'm telling this just because this is going to be your assignment today, and I'm hoping you to work on this. Because tomorrow I'm not going to code all these things. This would be in advance maybe. Restaurant. Okay, so this is how we are going to link, and that's it. Actually, we can work on that, but we do not have much time. It's been, today is the 6th day, and we are still in the API section, because on front end we have a lot of work to do, because React is a huge thing, and we are going to work with React, and all that is also very fun. I love React anyway. In all those frameworks that belong to JavaScript, I love React most. Personal preference again. Okay, so this is how we are going to link, and that's it. So now we have successfully linked, and let's just do it. So let's define our action, what we are going to do. Firstly, okay, so firstly, the validation is there and all of these things are there. Okay, 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 okay. So firstly, we'll check that the user and the restaurant exist or not. So what happened is, in the, if we, so for this only, in the shall we, no, restaurant is fine if it is not unique. Like there could be multiple restaurant with the same name, it's absolutely fine. So if user exists or not, so if we'll firstly check that if the user exists or not. as we do while even signing up for other users. So that is the basic precaution. And then if the user exists, then firstly add, maybe let's add the user first, and then add add restaurant, and then okay, here add restaurant with user ID, which we are going to get here, and then update user with restaurant ID. Why are we doing this? Because firstly, we are adding user, and we can do vice versa with the restaurant also. So firstly, we are adding user, then we are adding this restaurant with the user ID. Now we have the user ID, we have added this user ID to the restaurant. Now your restaurant is linked with this user, but this user is not linked with the restaurant now, because we just generated the restaurant, right? And it is not linked. So that user needs to be updated with the restaurant ID again. And now we have successfully registered, and this restaurant would go to the admin page, like the Zomato page, and they will see that they needs to be activate or not. So that thing, like activating or not, so we are going to use it here. Maybe status, which is going to be type. So see, now this is how we are going to work. Like this is how we work. Like if I would have defined and made this project, made this Zomato clone project, or any project just to work with you, just to make you understand how these things work, it would have a very static one, right? But now here we are deciding everything, how it should go, how it should not, what are the fundamentals, what are the small bugs that we are getting, how we structure the code, and all along the way, suppose if this thing should be there, this thing should be added right there. So we are doing all of this all together, because this is how we actually work in the real environment, you know. Default one should be false. Now see, here we are defining the default one false. Why? Because we don't want the restaurant to be approved the moment they joined, of course, right? Now okay, so we can just do this from the user code, because we do not have much patience to work. Like we have already exceeded our time. Wow, every day we are exceeding, but it's fine, we are in the flow now. And if you guys are getting bored or something, you can just write on the chat. And it seems like not many sarcastic people have joined the class. They are so quiet, they are so sincere. Good, good. That does not mean you are going to spam the chat now, please. But you can call, you can just throw down anything what you are thinking, or anything. We can just stay chat while coding all this, so it should not be that difficult. Password and everything, right? So no, this is login, and there's something I'm seeing the chat regarding restaurant not category. Restaurant not category. So I'm not getting Jagreet, where you are defining this restaurant not category. Okay, so let's check if the user exists or not, right? So this is the first thing we are going to make. New user, and that's it. Okay, so firstly check the user exists or not, and we are going to import this user from where? From the users service. User is coming from require a bit more higher, a bit more, and then models slash users. Now we have user dot get by phone ID. Yes, if the user exists, then that's all, game on. Else add the user. So let's go to the controller and add these data right here. I don't like to just copy and paste the code, but today we have to. So request and body. Now we are just hashing this. So if we are hashing, we also need decrypt here. Require decrypt. Perfect. Now this is done. We are getting all these things. So if this does not exist, then so on and so on. And here also we are going to handle multiple. It's because when people did, the chat was blocked. It's because when the people did, the chat was blocked. I think those people stopped joining since it's not fun allowed without a bit of musty. Now, if you just, as I told, like, if you just start to, spam the chat, that is not going to make any sense. Only single message is enough. I'm going to watch every single message anyway. So this restaurant. I was talking about index.js module restaurant. Okay, wait, let me check in a while. We can send something like unable to add restaurant. No, restaurant. Yes. Okay, so models restaurant. So as a model restaurant index. Okay. Oh yes, right. You got it right. Restaurant. Thanks, Jagreet. You are my helping hand now. Perfect. It goes well. Okay. Now we are just checking if the user exists or not. Then we are adding the user. And now we need to add the restaurant also. So let's just add the restaurant. Do we have the restaurant? No, not yet. But now we have. Restaurant is going to be required from same place, I guess. No, same place. Models and restaurant. Perfect. And here, if we are going to create, then const new restaurant. Now see here we are sending this request.body, right? And this request.body has so many stuff, but don't worry, this restaurant name, location, owner name are not going to be saved, but we need to structure this a bit. New restaurant is going to be await restaurant. Please, can you keep attendance again? My net connection got disconnected. Okay. Create. Okay, so now we can just send request.body directly, but here we have multiple stuff going on. So let's just restructure this. Now suppose, firstly for the user. For user, what data do we need? For what data we are going to send? We are going to send name, which is like request. Okay, firstly, let's do something. Let's destructure all this data. Const all this data from maybe request dot body. So there would be the restaurant name, location name, owner name, phone, password, and I guess that is pretty much it. Now we can just remove this and we can move forward. So here, while creating the user, let's see the user schema again. What are the required fields? So required are like something name, phone, password, role, which is needed to pass, and the status, which would be true by default. So let's create name, which is going to be owner name. Then role is needed. We are going to mention all of these things in a while. Status is needed. Maybe not the status, it's fine. We can put something like password is needed and phone is needed, right? So phone we have already. Role, for role we are going to define something like role dot restaurant, but this is coming from, we are in the restaurant only, right? But this is coming from user. So let's import that constant again. Require models slash users slash, sorry, users slash constant, and here we have something like role, and that role has restaurant. Now see here, manually we are adding this role to that user, just to define that this user would be the restaurant user, and password, so we are defining the password anyway. So here also we are going to destructure, password is already there, phone is already there. So we are adding this user, and secondly we need to structure, we need to add the restaurant. So let's add the restaurant. For restaurant, what data we need? We need restaurant name, which we are going to define as a name, and it's going to be the user, I'm sorry, this name. We, what do we need more? Restaurant schema, name, location, image is not needed, status is not needed, and the owner, location and the owner. So the location is already there, I guess. Location is already there, and the owner should be an object ID, right? So owner dot ID, and let me put this here. So this would be owner. Okay, so here in the owner, we are passing, like suppose this would be the new user which would be created, right? So this owner, we are having this ID in the new owner, and then we are sending it directly to the new restaurant. And the restaurant would be created with name, location, and owner. I hope all these three are required, or maybe if not required, at least not this, but perfect. Now what we need to do, we need to update the user, right? So let's just add, now again, this needs to be added in the, yes. So here we do not have the updated function yet. So let's add it. Whenever we are going to add any user, we are going to have two things. Firstly, we'll be sending query, and secondly, we'll be sending data, right? So here, you can also have this one, yes. So here, user dot update many, if we are sending multiple one, and not many, let's use update one for now. So update one, and update one, we are going to send two things. Firstly, the query and what data, see the filter query, and secondly the data what needs to be saved. So we sent this query, and we are going to objectify this. So if nothing is coming on, at least the empty object is there, it should not be undefined. And secondly, the data. Now here is the thing, this data would be sorry, now this data would be an object, right? Now suppose if in the user data, where's the user schema, yes, now user has multiple data, right? Now suppose in that object, if we are sending only the restaurant ID, then in this entire object would be replaced with that restaurant ID only. Like suppose there are name, phone number, and everything, but after updating with these data, if you're sending only restaurant ID, this restaurant ID would be there. Like the entire document would be updated and would be replaced by the restaurant ID. So what do? We use a query, something like set, and the set basically defines as much as object we are going to send, this is going to update that much data only. So if you're sending only restaurant, so only restaurant would be set, not the entire object would be updated. So update one is ready. Now we can use the update method in here. So use it directly, user dot update. No, we need to pass something. Oh, not like that. We need to pass something. Firstly, the query, right? So the query should be, we can pass the ID directly, or maybe the phone number, phone, which we already have. And secondly, we are going to pass the data that what need to be updated. So there, this restaurant needs to be updated with this new restaurant dot id. Okay, so this update in this update function, see, this is so simple to add this query and everything. This is the query. We are sending this query. We are, and again, as I told, this in this index under models, we are only going to create the transactions with the database. We are not explicitly using it everywhere, because we'll be creating user, we'll be updating user from multiple ways. So this is how we use it. So we can call it multiple times. Update phone restaurant and the restaurant id itself, right? Now it looks fine. Now let's just add this to the router. I mean, router, firstly let's get our controller, and I guess this is the last one we are going to work on today. If it successfully works, I don't want any bug to stop us, as it usually happening. Restraint, why are we going forward? Controller and validator. I guess this is validator is coming like this, but this should not come like this, I guess. In the middleware, validator index. Oh, this is exporting, right? But this should not export. It's fine. We might add something else in here. Okay, so this is validator, which is requiring from the middleware, which has something like validator, and this method is perfectly there. And the last thing we are going to import is the schema, which needs to be validated from the validator contract. Perfect. And now in router, we already had main here. So this time we are going to watch this. So last time we are not using this method, but this time we are going to use this. Let's just copy this. We are going to use this method. Yes. Router dot host, and this should be maybe, oh yeah, this would be restaurant side, right? So sign up, and the method is going to be firstly the validator, of course, and validator we are going to pass schema dot, oh, hold on, doesn't the schema has multiple stuff? In validator we're exporting this, yes, from this validator. I guess there is something wrong. Oh, something is wrong with the name. Schema, and this is added. Now the controller function. Now I don't know if you're observing or not, but there is a sort of a flow for creating something, like for creating any API that we just did. What we did is, again, there is something left, let's just add that, and then we can just go with that flow, what we add, and then what, and then what, and then what. So our clarity of creating any API becomes more easier to build while coding. And then just export it, module dot exports router. Now let's go to the router, and this is the master router, and we are going to add one more, which is going to be restaurant. And just like this, we are going to add restaurant. Perfect. Now there would be something like a restaurant and so on, but see, I guess we got certain error as usual. Then let's just resolve it first. In restaurant controller, we are using this without a sync function, which is literally a crime in Node. Oh wow, interesting. In this schema, where is this? Cannot find modules schema in there. Controller index. Okay, there are a lot of files we have just opened. Even this schema you are not finding, or what? Cannot find module schema. Okay, restaurant index, and restaurant is just right there, and schema is also right there. No, this is the model one. And modules restaurant controller, modules restaurant. We got another error and we are just trying to resolve it, as it usually happens at the end. We end. Oh, there are a lot of people. This is the error because module restaurant index. Okay, long spelling of schema. There is a typo, schema. Okay, thank you. I'll be schema, I say not schema. Okay, where is it? Models restaurant index, right? So no, models. Okay, models restaurant index. Oh, this one. Got it. Schema works. Thank you so much, Anvisha. Agreed, Piyush. Perfect. You have just resolved, and now we can move forward and create our first restaurant or user. Finger crossed. Now you know what? In like this happens so many times. Like suppose we wrote everything without testing anything, right? And now if it works, no, it feels like you are so genius. Sign up the restaurant. And here we are going to add the same one. No, not like this. The same one, but restaurant. Raw text from JSON. And there, what do we need? Let's just add all of those stuff first. Where is our control validator? Yes, we need restaurant name. Suppose restaurant name is as in maybe let's call it Zomato only. And the location, let's call it Punjab. And secondly or thirdly, the owner name, which is like Mr. Singh. And lastly, no, phone, which could be something like 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, or anything, maybe. Then the password is going to be, let's put it like 1 2 3 4 5 6. Okay, looks good. You need to get something horrible? Of course not. Phone must be a string. Oh wow, we added phone to be a string. Number. See, these are so small debugging, but again, we are going across to this. Unable to add restaurant. We got something or some error. No, we haven't got any error, but we are unable to add restaurant. Let's log the error and see what happened. Now see, if you get any error in that particular function, again, this what we are doing is just we are passing this restaurant, right? But in a standard application, we handle this error and log this error in a single way. So here we are just debugging it right away. Typo never leaves my hand. So be cautious about it and help me out whenever I'm writing something wrong. And just log it and see what happens. Type assignment to constant variable. Wow, where? Restaurant controller. Even here on new. Okay, 21. 21 password. Okay. Oh yes, I'm defining this const and then I'm just changing it. So at least the user does not exist and this is coming towards this way. Perfect. Let's see. Now what happens? Okay, this is taking a bit longer time, which usually doesn't happen. Then I think we are stuck somewhere. So let's debug even this. Firstly, let's see if we have added something or not. So the user has been added. The restaurant has been added. Oh, of course. Now, oh, got it. What happened? Now, see, when we are successfully adding everything, we are not actually responding anything, right? So it was just in loop. So it just send return response dot status 201 created and send this to something like whenever success true and a message, not like that, message which should be like restaurant added admin will we will contact you shortly. We will contact you shortly. Perfect. Okay, so let's just delete this user first and even the user, and let's do it again just to get the success response. That is so satisfying. Okay, restaurant added. We'll contact you shortly. Perfect. Now let's go to the data. Okay, so now the phone is there, password is there. Now see, the role is one because it is restaurant and so on. Now the restaurant ID is also there for these particular user as we updated later on, right? Now this user has suppose CBCB, and now let's go to the restaurant and the owner has CBCB. Okay, now the user ID is also successfully connected and everything looks great. Perfect. Okay, so till now we are successfully adding the restaurant and also the owner with the particular admin. After assigning the admin, I guess that's pretty much it. Now your task is going to be to work with the categories and items. So again, this is a very short way. We just added the restaurant, and again, the simple database transition we just created this a single line. You can do this even on category and items. You're not going to like add update or something. At least just add create. So update is also very simple. So in the user, if you go and index, so there are also update method. You can see query data and data. This is the line you are going to add. You can absolutely copy and paste, but if you code it by yourself, you will understand what you are writing update. Your finger is literally practicing and your brain is going to understand every single syntax while you're writing. Like suppose when you're writing user dot update one, then you're understanding you're writing update, but next time you cannot write only update, right? So these are the fundamentals, and your brain needs to grasp this even more than you, because our brain is handling all of us, not we. Perfect. Now, so okay, again, so your task will be to let's create and update. Link the both of these with restaurant, and both of them, like category should be linked with the items should be linked with the categories, and both of them should be linked with the restaurant, and both of them should be an API to create the item, create the category, and create the items. That's it. Like suppose there would be certain API. If we see in this example, so this route module has now the restaurant has only one, which is restaurant sign up. Now in categories and item, there would be two, which would be suppose create and update. That's all you need to do, create and update. So create and update should be in category and items in both of this. So that is going to be your task. If you successfully get it done, and if you're getting any error or something, just obviously I'm there on Instagram and also on Telegram, actively on Telegram, so we can discuss right there. And if you have successfully done, then I don't know I would get enough time or not, but okay, share your code with me, like the wherever you are coding, like your GitHub link or something, and that should be very personal. Like you can share on Instagram, you can DM me directly on Instagram, and of course share a story. That would be a great. And of course tag Geeks for Geeks, Skill Valley, and me. Right there, you know my Instagram ID for sure. Yeah, location, there's an error. The new at restaurant. Okay, Anvesh location. There is an error. Okay, Anvesha, whatever or anyone else getting any error, just log it to the Telegram group and we can discuss more on that. And at the end of the day, we will fix it for sure. So on today's class, have any queries or something? We can discuss a bit more. Short of a Q&A if you have any. It's been a long class anyway. I think everybody has slept.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Hey, yes, you are. We are
Yeah,
having
so
long classes. Yes, yeah, I know. As an engineer, we are habituated to long classes, but we are literally optimizing so many things. And trust me,
yeah,
every 5 minutes you are learning a new thing here. So that
yeah,
is
exactly.
really needed for us.
Yes, sir. So I think, sir, this is end for today's session.
Yes, perfectly.
Yeah. So there are two things that I have to tell you guys. The first one is you have to fill that form in order to get the certificate. And more important thing to note is in order to get the certification for this 15 days boot camp, you have to attend 12 out of 15 classes. And apart from that, if any one of you want the recording of these sessions going on, you have to mail your email ID to the mail mentioned. You can see in the chat box. Yeah, the mail is there. I'll paste it again. So there you have to mail, and then the drive link will be shared with you or with your mail, I believe. Yeah. So let me, Shranshu, can you paste the link again of the mail and attendance link
Yeah,
to the
sure,
company?
sure, sure. Yeah.
Okay. I think sir has left or
No,
no,
I'm
sir.
still here. I'm just waiting for you to finish.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir, for this informative session. Looking forward for more one.
Yes, perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
If you have any errors, so I'm there on Telegram group. Share your errors on everything, and then we can discuss more on that. Welcome. Thank you. Bye bye.
Good night, sir.
Good night.